This conference will now be
My name is
recorded.
Celia Alves. My name is Celia Alves, and I am in Canada. So here it's early in the morning. Thank you so much, Raim, for inviting me to be here with you today, sharing knowledge, helping people evolve in their careers. I hope that this session is useful for you. And thank you to all of those who decided to spend a little bit of their Sunday afternoon or Sunday time, whatever the time of the day is for you, to be with us today. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I hope I can help you learn something new today. And please feel free to ask questions. There should be a pane for questions. There was a link at the beginning where Raim was telling you where you can write your questions. Feel free to write your questions there, and throughout the session, I'll be stopping for a while here and there and see if there's any questions I can help you with. Okay, and so I think we can start. Raim, please feel free to interrupt me if you see that there are questions or anything that needs my attention, okay?
Oh, sure.
If I speak too fast or too slow, or let me know. If I tend to forget to zoom in the screen, I'm not sure how the picture shows on your end. So if you need me to do a zoom when I am explaining things, sometimes the menus are very small. Please let me know, interrupt me so that I can do a zoom so that everyone can see what we are doing, okay?
Okay, that's great.
Okay, so the session today will be about Power Query. I would like to know from the people attending who has used Power Query already. So please feel free to, on the chat, if you never used Power Query, if this is the first time you're using it, you can press 1, type 1. If you have used it just a little bit, you don't know much about it, you think you can use it more often in your work, type a 2. And if you are using Power Query already often, type a number 3 so that I can know the type of audience that we have, and if and know if I can go faster or slower with the basics. It's probably sometimes this type of programs have a little bit of a lag. I'm not sure if that's what happens with GoToMeeting. Raim, have people answered?
Yes, we have more than 5 people who have written 2 and few people write 1.
Okay, so thank you for being here. It will be, I think it will be a good place for you to learn something new today. That's our goal. And I'll tell you, once you start using Power Query, if you use Excel in your work, it gets addictive. So at some point, that's all you want to use every time you have the chance to. Of course, Power Query is not to be used all the time for everything, but for the work that we will see that is for, you will get addictive almost for sure. Okay, so a little bit about myself, just so that you know who I am and where I come from. My name is Celia Alves, like I said. I am originally from Portugal, where I lived until 2013. I got my master's degree and in mathematics and education there in Portugal, and I taught mathematics in high school for almost 20 years. And then at some point, my husband and I, we decided to move to Canada. And when we moved here, I wasn't willing to start a career as a teacher from scratch. I would have to start with all my certifications and all that. and I wasn't ready for that. I just preferred to find something new. I wasn't sure where my career would be going, but at some point Excel came as an answer. I had been using Excel for quite some time, since the beginning of my career as a teacher, but always at a basic level compared to what I am using now. Of course, at that time I was using what I needed for my job. I didn't need much more than I was using, but I was also not aware of what Excel could do. Maybe if I was aware of what Excel can do, I would have been using much more of its potential there than that I was. But well, so after I came here and after a while, at some point I was working for a company who had a lot of systems already in place with Excel, some automations, and they required more. The owner knew that she knew that, or she thought that I knew a lot of Excel. I knew a little bit. So she started asking me, oh, could you also do this? Could you also do that? This is automated, but this is still very manual. And so I started from there. I started learning from what I saw that was already implemented. There was a lot of VBA there. I started studying VBA. I didn't know VBA until then. I started taking some courses online, practicing a lot, and I think that what helps us more, at least for me, that's what works best for me to help me learn, is having some kind of the real challenge on hands. So not just something that we are solving because it's an exercise on a course, but some real life problem, and we have that on our hands and we have to solve it. That's the best way to learn. um, so that I started from there about 4 years ago. So I'm not there are a lot of professionals in Excel with long years of experience. Myself in this use of more extensive and more um, um, deep use of Excel, it's been only for the past 4 years. From that job, I then started working for different companies, because as a developer, what happens is that you solve the problems for that company, and once everything is automated, you're not needed there anymore, unless for some maintenance here and there. So that's how I ended up being a consultant, because I start the project, I finish the project, and that's it. So we need to move on and find other people needing our help. Some time ago, I also took my certification in Excel as an Excel expert, and almost a year ago, I started a group in Toronto, a meetup group about Excel, where we meet we used to meet every month. Now during this COVID time, we are meeting almost every week. So I even invite you, wherever you are in the world, feel free to join, to register with us. And now, since the sessions are online, you can join us as long as you are, as it's not during the night time for you. I hope everyone is okay during these tough times, and may God keep you, all of you, safe. So let's go for our content. Any questions so far, Raim?
No, no questions.
Okay. So today we are going to talk about Power Query. We will see what is Power Query, where that is available, where you can find that tool, and then we will talk about some fundamental features of Excel tools and techniques that we can use. I will go through a few practical examples, and with those, I hope that you can start having an idea of what Power Query can do for you. Excuse me. Like in Excel, Power Query, it's quite powerful, has a lot of different options. It's not something that you can learn fully in one day. It's something that you learn as you go, as you practice. Every challenge is different. Sometimes just one little change, one little thing different on the requirements of a project, different from something else. It may seem very similar, but just one small requirement that it's different from the previous one can make the project much more challenging or not. So you need to practice, and you need to try to solve each problem, see what you can find in Power Query, look through the tools, and of course use Google or any other browsing internet browsing tool. There's a lot of content, there's a lot of materials, and you will find answers for what you need. Okay, so what is Power Query? It is a ETL tool. What is ETL? ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. So whenever you want to bring data from another source, you are running through an ETL process. You need to extract the data from that source. You need to transform the data. Because most of the times the data in the source is not exactly how you need it to be. Sometimes it has too many columns. Other times you need to maybe massage the data a little bit. That there is too much information in one column and you need to split that in half maybe. So that's a transformation part. And then you need to load the result of that transformation into your Excel sheet, for example. That's what we are talking about is Power Query in Excel. So it says here, Power Query is the Microsoft data connectivity and data preparation technology that enables business users to seamlessly access data stored in hundreds of data sources and reshape it to fit their needs with an easy use, engaging, and no-code user experience. The no-code, it's almost true. So in fact, you can do a lot with Power Query without knowing any code. But as we will see throughout the examples, there's a programming language that is generated on the backstage. Every action that you take in Power Query is recorded in a language called M code. And if you start learning that language and understanding how it works, it helps you doing even more powerful projects with Power Query. It helps you, and it's not too difficult. And who is used with VBA, it won't be difficult to learn to. And I don't know a lot of M code, just a little bit. I could say I don't know any M code, because like I said, I haven't been using this tool for a long time, and I learn as I go. I will be sharing my presentation later. So in this Learn More link, you have the information from Microsoft pages and all the other sources of information where you are welcome to look for more details. Okay. Am I speaking too fast? You can, people, the
I think it's
attendees,
okay. Yeah,
please feel free
the
to
pace is good.
complain. If sorry.
The pace is okay.
Okay, good. So what does Power Query then? So in a simple way, Power Query starts with a data source layout and then transforms it in the layout that you need it to be. And this can be anything. For example, these two tables, they show the exact same information, only the layouts are different. On the left, I have a tabular format layout. So I have the name, one column with a name and one column with a course. And let's imagine these are students, and each student may attend different courses. Anne is attending 3 courses, Anthony is attending 4 courses, and so on. In some cases, I may need this information laid out on a different format, different layout. In this case here, I have Anne in one column, and then on the cell to the right, I have a list of all the courses that Anne is enrolled in. So French, history, and dance separated by a comma. And both situations can happen. We can have a situation where I need to transform column blue in column green. This is in fact an example of a project that I had to do, where the client had the information in the format of the blue table, and he needed information to be in the second format to be then uploaded to a platform. So he was transferring data from one online platform to another one, and the second platform required the data to be uploaded in this format. On another situation, we can have the opposite. We can maybe have data given to us in the format as it shows on the green table, and we may want to, if you want to do data analysis, it's very difficult to do analysis with the data in that format. So we may want to transform the green table layout into the blue table layout. And Power Query can do both ways. So this is just an example of what you can use the Power Query for. Where is Power Query available? So it's available in these programs in Microsoft. So not only Excel, but also Power BI and Microsoft SQL Server data tools for Visual Studio, Common Data Service for app, but we will be focusing on Excel today, of course. Inside Excel, since 2016, Power Query is already built into and activated into the tool, into Excel. You can find it on the Data tab, and on a group of buttons that is called Get and Transform Data. In fact, I believe the name of the tool is Get and Transform, but initially it was Power Query, and everybody still calls it Power Query. The name Get and Transform, I guess it has not gathered a lot of fans. And but from 2010 and 2013, Excel 2010 and 2013, if you have those versions, you can also install Power Query as an add-in. And if you have Excel for Mac, the Power Query is only available at the moment for those who have the Insiders program. So those who are using the version more advanced that has some features still in the testing phase, and it's quite limited compared to the Power Query version for Excel for Windows. But it's growing, they are developing it. So then again, on these links, later you will be able to find more information. Just before we were saying that definition from Microsoft said that you can connect to hundreds of tools. So there's, sorry about that here, there's a list, a big list of different connectors, that's how it's called, of sorry about that. I'm trying to do here some zoom. Exactly. So there's a lot of different connectors that you can use Power Query to connect, to bring your data into Excel. We will be using these two today, Excel workbook and CSV files. But you can also connect to a lot of different data sources, including the web here. You can connect to the internet. I didn't prepare an example today, but it's something that you can also do. So if you are interested in gathering data that is available online, it's probably you will be able to use Power Query to connect to a certain link and to bring the data to into your file, Excel file. And the beauty of Power Query is that with a button called refresh, once you have your query all prepared, the next day the data is different online. You just need to click refresh and your data will be updated into your file. As you can see, the options available vary depending on the Office version that you are using. Okay. So this is just basic information about what Power Query is, and now we will be moving towards some examples. If there are any questions so far, please feel free to ask. I will be starting with an example here. So I
So
have,
sorry,
go
there
ahead.
is no question at the meantime. If there will be any question, I will definitely forward you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm opening two Excel files. Just a little bit. The first one that you were just seeing behind is, so sometimes my computer gets a little bit slow when we are on video transmission. So I just thank you for your patience. Okay. We have this ugly CSV file on our left. It's a report about different cameras released in different years. It's very difficult to open an Excel file or to not to open, to see what's in there when you open the CSV file this way. I'm going to show you. So it is a CSV file. And if we do right click and we go open with, and we open with Notepad, this is the actual file. So it's not an Excel file, it's a text file. CSV means comma separated values. And this is a common format to receive data from different programs, different softwares. If you are working, for example, in accounting, most likely you have other softwares where you have a button to export a report, and you may be given the option of Excel file. Sometimes you only have the option of CSV format. Other times you have both options, but it's quite common to receive these files. In this case, the separator is not a comma. In fact, is a semicolon. This tells me that probably this file was generated in Europe, because, as you know, in Europe, we have people use comma as a decimal separator, not the dot. I don't know if that's the case in Pakistan. Is that what kind of separator do you use in Pakistan, Raim? Raim?
We use comma separated or tab delimited.
So okay, but when you have a decimal number, let's say 10.5, do you write 10.5 or 10,5?
10.5.
Okay, same thing here in Canada and North America, but in Europe, if we want to say 10.5, we actually write 10,5, and the comma is the decimal separator. And so if they are going to create text files, they cannot use the comma as a separator. They need to use the semicolon, because otherwise the comma from the numbers would get mixed. But on the other hand, we have dots here. So anyways, this is just something. It may not seem important, but depending on the work that you are doing, depending on which part of the world you are working. And sometimes you are in one part of the world and you receive files from another part of the world, and they come in a format that it's not the most common for you. So these are things that it's important to keep in mind. Sometimes the numbering formats and date formats are different, and this is something we need to deal with when using Power Query. Okay, so we have this file. When we open in Excel, it's difficult to see the information there. I want to bring the information into Excel. So let's open this file, and let's see what we can do to bring the information. We go to the Data tab. Can you see it, or is it too small?
Yes, this is visible and clear on
Okay,
full
so
screen.
data tab is in there at the top. So I'm using Office 365. If you have the Excel 2016, at least you have data tab there. And the other versions before the same, they may not get, you may not have the Power Query tools, which, like I mentioned before, are in here, this group here, where it says Get and Transform Data. This is our section, and also this section here, where we have the refresh all and the queries connection, will be useful for us. So we go here to the Data tab, and we go to Get Data, and we go from File and from a CSV. Okay, or we could use that button there, from Text CSV File as well, also works. Now it asks me, okay, where is your file? Okay, let me find my file. In fact, I'm going to just copy and put this here on the side, because we are going to need this path a while, just several times. Just give me a second, please. Just taking note here on my notepad. Keeping these here on the side. So we browse for the file, and just a second. Okay. So I'm going to start with this example CSV ugly file, and this is my data file, camera CSV. We need to wait a little bit while Power Query is loading. And now that I am on a video, it tends to slow the computer a little bit. Okay, there we go. And the first window we get here, okay, you are connecting to a CSV file. What's your delimiter? And it already guessed it was semicolons, so we don't need to do anything there. The example will be based on the first 200 rows. So there's another thing about Power Query. As you know, Excel has 1,048,000 something rows. And we would be limited to data sets that would not go past that amount of rows of records. But with Power Query, in fact, we can connect to rows, to data sources with even millions of rows. And we will be able to analyze the data. We are not, as long as we don't need to put the data physically showing each record on our sheet, we don't need we can tell Power Query, okay, bring me the data, but keep it on the back end of my workbook. You don't need me to show it. You don't need to show it to me, but keep it there, and I will do some analysis with that. I won't be using files with millions of rows today. to make it simple, easier, faster for us today, but it's just some information that you need to know. Power Query allows you to connect with big data sets, and then it will depend on your machine capacity to handle that. Okay, so in this screen, what I want to do is click Transform Data. We need to wait a little bit. It will bring us another screen. This is Power Query Editor.
If
And
you can zoom this window a bit.
yeah, I will. Now in Power Query, I cannot zoom it constantly. I don't think I can zoom it but I will zoom the different buttons every time, and if I forget,
Sure.
please remind me.
Okay.
Okay, so here we have our data. It already separated everything by columns. Nice. And if you see here on the right, it has applied steps. Can you see that? Applied steps here. Oh, I keep forgetting. I should click another button here to bring a square. Okay. Here, it's a little bit similar to what a macro recorder would be in VBA for those who use macros. So every action I take here in Power Query, it will record step by step. And by default, or most of the times, it tends to record a few steps right away. And one of them is the change type. What this is Power Query decides the data type, what type of data each column has. We will get this at the end, so I'm going to delete this for now. The other step here that Power Query made automatically was promoted headers. So if we click in this step, we will see, okay, when the data came, it was like that, separated in columns, and the first row has these words here. And Power Query already figured out, okay, these are the column titles, the headers. So by itself, it went and did this step that we could do with this button, which is use first row as headers, and already put the headers there for us. Okay, so now we have our data organized. We can go and start doing something with it. This file has not may not be something you relate a lot on your areas. I'm not sure if everybody is coming from accounting or other related areas, but the idea is that those type of ugly files, like I called CSV files, for example, bank files, I receive files like that all the time, and the concept is the same. So we can use this example to understand some of the tools we have. Let's imagine here it says model, and I can see that the brand of the camera is in fact the first word. So I can go and say, separate this for me, please. So I select this column and I go split column, or no, split by the limiter, split column, exactly, split column, and then by the limiter. And it takes a little bit, just let's wait a little bit. Okay, and then in here it asks me, okay, what's your delimiter? Our delimiter will be a space, and I don't want to separate on each occurrence. I want to separate only after the leftmost delimiter. So the first space on the left. So I'm going to say, okay, space is okay, choose the leftmost delimiter. And okay. And here we have one column with the first word that gives us the brand. I can come here to the top and put brand. And the second column gives me the model. So I can put model here. Let's imagine now that I want to bring the information. I only want these two columns. I want the release date, which is only the year, so I can even change this header to year. And I don't need any of this. I just need the last column, which is the price. So I can eliminate the columns that I don't need. And there's two ways I can do that. I can select the columns that I want to delete and then choose delete columns, or I can select the columns that I want to keep and then select delete the other columns. Most of the times I prefer the second option. So I want brand, I hold control, I want model, I click on model, I want year, so holding the control key all the time, and then I want price. And I don't need the other columns for my analysis. So now right click and I can choose remove other columns. The reason it is important to decide between the two options is the following. As you can see here at the top, let me zoom a little bit. We have a kind of a formula bar here at the top, and the steps that we are taking are being recorded here in the M code language. And in here, the code is table.select columns, and then it tells us the columns that I selected. If I had chosen the columns that I wanted to delete, the names here would be the columns to delete. And what happens a lot of times is that the programs that generate these CSV data files, they are in constant change, and sometimes they add new columns to the report. And the next time you are going to run the report and it has a new column there, and you don't want to deal with that column, you just want these four columns. So most of the times this is the best option, but not always. You will have to be just aware of these two options, and in each case think what is best in your situation. So we have our four columns here. The steps are being recorded here on the side. We have our data almost ready. The only thing we need to do now is to take a look at our data type. And looking at the data type we tend to forget, because Power Query most of the times, like I said, does that automatically for us. We tend to trust, but it's very important that we take a look at every column and see if the data that we have there is in the type that we need. And the way we can see that is by looking at these icons here. So it says ABC, it means Power Query is considering this is a text column. Same thing for the model, the year. No, for the model, and then the year it's considering it's a whole number. Okay, we can accept that. And the price it's considering it is a whole number as well. In this case, the prices could be decimal. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to click here and I'm going to use a decimal number. We could also use currency. I prefer the decimal numbers. And you see another step was applied here, change type 1. So it changed the steps. So by the way, I'm not going to spend time today renaming the steps, but another thing that it's important to know is that this is the name of our query. By default, it already named our query as camera because our data source name was camera. So we could change the name here. And these names here for each step, they are generated automatically, but you could also come here, right click and do rename. and you can change the name of the step. It is useful, especially if you are preparing a long query with a lot of steps, to help you not to get lost. And so we can go back. If we wanted, we can go back each step and see how the data was before we transformed it. This is very, very interesting, very useful, very cool. I like it a lot because you can see all the steps and you can see the transformations being applied. You could mix, so you could move up, move down the steps if you decided, oh no, in fact, I need to do this first before I do something else. You could do that, and it's very interesting. Step by step, you as long as you start practicing, you will get used to all these different features. Okay, so now we are finally ready to come and do our data. In fact, I'm going to do something. I'm going to delete this last step. Not delete. I'm going to see. I'm going to show you what would happen if the information in this column was as a text format. Okay, let's leave this like that, and then we'll come back and fix it. So now it's time to load our data. I can come here and go close and load, or close and load to. I prefer go close and load to. It gives me a little bit more flexibility to choose what I need. And now we have a few options. We can choose load the data to a table, a pivot table. If your goal is to create a pivot table, you can go directly to creating a pivot table. I usually like to create a table if the data is not too big. I like to bring the data and see it there, but it's not necessarily required all the time. And other situations, you can choose here only create connection. And this, in fact, is that option that we have. Bring the data, but do not put it there on my sheet. Just keep it on the back, and this is the option for that. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to say table, and I want an existing worksheet, and I want to put my information here, and I click OK. We need to wait a little bit. This file has 1,000 something rows. If we go control down, we can see the last row is 1,043. So this is our information. And what happens if I try to do a pivot table, for example, with this table? I can go insert pivot table. This is my data range, of course, that's correct. New worksheet, no, I want to put my data here. Let's put it here in this cell. Okay. Can you see it well enough, or is it too small? I hope you can see it. Let me know if that's not the case. So here on the right, I have my pivot table area. I'm going to start building my pivot table. I'm going to put the brand into my rows section. I'm going to put the filter, the year in my filter, so that I can see a report by year. And I'm going to put price in the values section. And I'm going to put price as I want to to see what was the minimum price for each brand, what was the maximum, and what was the average each year. So for example, if I select the year 1996 here, I want to see for each brand what was the minimum. By default, Excel put count of price. I don't want to count prices. I want to come here, right click, value setting, and I want the minimum. Okay. And it tells me the minimum is 0. That's very weird. Okay, let's pretend I don't know what's going on, and I'm going to get the price again to the values, and I'm going to say, okay, give me the maximum. And it's telling me it's 0 again. That's weird. And now I'm going to put the price again here in the middle, and I'm going to say, right click, value field settings. I'm going to say, I want the average price, and it gives me an error. And you will already probably guessed the problem with this, although we see values here, you can see they are all aligned to the left, and this is an indicator that these numbers are being treated as text. So in fact, I put my data as a text, as you saw, but sometimes we don't do it on purpose. Power Query thinks it's text. It depends on how the file is prepared, the data source file. So we need to be careful with this. Here on the right, you can see queries and connections. If you don't see it, you go to Data tab, and then there's a button here where you see queries and connections. This is the button you need to click, okay? So if you click here, queries and connections, the pane on the right appears, and then you double click on the query, and it opens the query editor for you. Let's wait a little bit. And so then we can come here and make any changes we want. So I want, in fact, to come here and say this is a decimal. In fact, yesterday when I was preparing the session, the date came to me as text. I didn't have to put it as text. Excel just put it like that. So replace current step. I don't want to add another step to as a change type. I just want that step and replace it. And again, you can see it here at the top. That the code here telling me that I transform that column price and the type number is the way M code is telling me you change the data type to number. If you don't see this bar when you are trying at home, the way you can see that is you come here to view and you click the formula bar. Let me zoom for you. So you come here to view tab, and here you click the formula bar, put a check mark so that you can see this bar with the formulas, okay? It's very useful so that we get used to the language. We don't need to learn it everything on the first day, but we can get used to it. Okay, so now let's go to the home tab, just click close and load. The data should be updated here. If you notice, now the numbers are aligned to the right. So now Excel is looking at these numbers not as text, but as numbers. And if we click here on our pivot table and we go refresh, right click refresh, now we have our values. So just a small example here. The data is not very complex. The report we need is not complex either. We just need these 3 columns, all about the same data column, the price. But already, as you can see here, we had to take care of a lot of different things. Pay attention to the data types, be aware of what Excel is doing, and yeah, and just be aware of these things, pay attention. Don't despair if you get errors. There's a reason for that, and with experience, with practice, you will be able to solve these issues faster. Okay. Sometimes at the beginning we spend so much time trying to understand why is this not working, but sometimes it's just little things like this one, like the data type. Okay, I just saved the file. This file will be available for you at the end of the session. Raim will send the file for you. Let me just review my cheat sheet here. I think I covered everything I wanted. Just a summary, quick summary of what we have done. We talked about get data from a CSV file. We used the feature split column by delimiter when we separated the brand of the cameras from the model designation. We talked about the data types. We talked about the promoting headers, and we talked about going back to the editor, to the query, and editing the query. So a few things that we already used here. Okay, I'm going to close this file. If there are any questions, now is a good time, because I need to go back to another folder and open another file. In fact, I'm going to open two files. I'm going to open this file where we will be building our query. And I'm going to open the other file, which is an Excel file, XLSX, which is our data file. So it's called payroll. The extension is XLSX, so it's an Excel file. This file was also generated from an accounting software. I'm going to put this on the side. We don't need that for now. No question, Raim?
So far, so good.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, I'm going to minimize this. Just put this bigger. So this is a file generated by software, accounting software. It has payroll information, not a lot of rows, just we are interested in these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. And let's imagine that for some reason, the person, the owner of the company or the manager, he is interested in getting the information from this file, and he only wants what was the net payment and what was the employer liability for each employee. And if you are taking care of something like this, you will probably get the file if you are not aware of what a Power Query can do for you. And you will go, oh, I need to remove these columns. And then there's another column here. This is the headers row, not columns, rows. And this is a row that I don't need. And then I need these ones. I don't need this at the bottom. And it's very annoying having to do this all the time, the same way every month or every week or whatever the payroll cycle is. Some people, of course, some of us would use VBA, have been using VBA. VBA is great. VBA is not being replaced by Power Query for a lot of things, because VBA does a lot more than just the ETL tasks, extraction, transforming, and load. VBA was used also for that, and now is being less and less used for that task, because Power Query is so much powerful, so much easier. So once, like I said, once you start using Power Query for what it's available to you, you won't need to go back and continue to use VBA. But VBA is and still will be very important for many other things some of you may know. Allows us to automate a lot of other things that are not related to the ETL
So there
tasks.
is one question we can take, a question from Shayan.
Sorry?
There is one question from Shayan. So
Okay.
can you answer? Shayan is basically asking that he's trying to change a source after making all the queries, but it is not identifying the other steps after changing the source from the files to the folder.
So he wants to change the source.
Yeah, basically he have implemented some of the steps, and later on he has changed the source, but the query
Okay.
is not identified.
So the source is the file has a different name, or maybe is saved on a different location. Would that be the case of this question?
Yeah, that might be the case. Yeah.
Okay, I will have something for you on one of the next examples.
Okay, thank
So
you.
if you wait a little bit, maybe I'll have the answer for you more towards the end of the session. And then if it doesn't answer your question, let me know again. Okay.
Sure. Thanks.
Okay. No, thank you. So this is our data source. I'm going to close the file, and let's load this with Power Query. Okay, we are here. We go to data, get data from file, and now it's a workbook. It brings this screen asking me, okay, so where's the book? I'm just copying here my path that we have used before. So now it's in this second folder here, and I'm going to use the payroll. It's opening. A little bit more. And here we have, so now the screen is a little bit different because now we are looking into an Excel file and not a CSV file. Here we have the information. Let me zoom this a little bit. We have the information about the elements in this Excel file. This is a very simple Excel file, so not to show. It tells us, well, it has one sheet. That's it. Other situations, we may have the sheet here, a list of all the sheets, a list of all the tables available in the document, a list of the named ranges in the document, different things. But in this case, very simple. I just need to choose, I want this sheet here. Okay, and we could do load, but I want to transform data. It's always best to go through the transform steps and not trust to Power Query to load it immediately for us unless we are sure that the data is very clean and all prepared for us, which is not the case now. So a little bit more waiting for Power Query editor to load. And here we have our data. Okay, again, it already created a few steps here for us. I'm going to delete the change type step. There's an option. I'm not going to show it here, but then I can send this information if you want, if you need to, or you can Google. There's an option to eliminate the promoted headers and the data type. But you need to do it on every single workbook that it doesn't maintain in Excel. It's just for that one workbook. And I like the promoted headers step. The data type is kind of annoying sometimes. It depends on the data. I'm going to remove this step as well. And let's start from here. One thing that I want to, it's very important because it also happens quite often, is that before that we have the source step. The source step, it's telling me you need to go to this file. That's our source step. And then the navigation, it's telling me, let me go and click. It's telling me, let me zoom. It's telling me here, go to the source, which is the file on the previous step, which the step was called source. And then in there, look for a sheet, an item 2019-11-29, and that item is the type kind type sheet. So it's a sheet, and the name of the sheet is this name. Here's what happens. Most of the times when these Excel files are generated from an accounting or other type of program, it comes when one sheet, and the sheet name is named after the file name or something on that file. And what will happen is that the next month, the next pay period, the sheet will be named differently. So if we leave it as is on our navigation step, the next time the file won't work. Because it will be looking for, the query won't work because it will be looking for a sheet with this name, and the sheet will be named differently. So what we can do in this case is that, in fact, we don't need, in this case, we don't need the name of the sheet. We can delete that part from our code and just leave the kind. So we go to the source and we are saying bring everything that is a sheet. This means that if we had different sheets, it would combine everything into one query probably. So if the sheets are different formats, we would get other challenges here to solve. Another thing that we can do is we could say in the query, I pressed escape and I went back. We would, what am I saying? Okay, if I wanted just the first sheet, I can also find the M code for that. If I'm not mistaken, it would be curly brackets, 0 curly brackets. And this means because Power Query is 0 based, the first item is the item 0. So I put a 0 there. I'm saying bring me all the sheets, but just the first one. Okay, so that would be one example. In fact, it's telling me something not right here. So probably the 0 is at the 0 with the curly brackets is at the end. But we are not going to try this now. Let's just try this here. Okay. So I'm bringing a sheet. I'm not referring to the name of the sheet. My file has only one sheet, so we are good to go in this case. And it brings me the data from that sheet. Automatically, it decided to promote headers and change the type again. I don't want that yet. I'm going to delete these steps. Okay. Now what I want to find a way to keep just the rows I need, which are these rows. So I could say, okay, delete the first 2 rows and then delete the bottom 4 rows and then delete me the second row. I could do that, but there's in fact another easier way. So to do that the way I was saying before, we could come here and say remove rows, remove top rows, and say how many rows it will ask me. Just a second, it needs to load. Number of rows, I would type a 2 here, and as you see, it will eliminate the top 2 rows. I'm going to do another way. If we pay attention to the second column, I see that what I want is everything on this column, all the rows in this column that do not have a null. So null means nothing, right? So what I can do is I can come here to this button and filter. So I'm going to choose, I'm going to filter out the null option, okay? Filter, I'm going to uncheck null. Okay. Again, in our M code here, we can see that it says column 2, each that is different from null. Okay. And this already gives me what we need. The only thing that we need to do now is, okay, so now the first row is not exactly data. The first row is to give us the headers. So this is when we go and do the promote. So use first row as headers. We are going to use this button, okay? And now we have the check date and everything here. Nice and clean. We are almost there. I'm going to keep the check date column, the name. Let's scroll to the right, and I want to keep the net pay column and the, oh, again, it put the change type. Okay, let's leave it there. And the employer liability, okay? And I don't want the other columns, so now I go right click and remove other columns. Let's see if the data type is correct. So the first is identified here as a date. We can see it has a calendar icon there, so it's fine. And the name is text, the net pay is as decimal, and the employer liability is decimal. So everything is guessed correctly. Let's keep it like that. Another thing we may need to use, I'm going to use this as an example so that you become aware of other features, is to split and then merge. Let's imagine that for some reason, I don't want my names to come as last name, comma first, because in fact, I have another employee data source on another file, and I will need to do maybe some VLOOKUPs or something, and the names on the other file are not like this. So I don't want the names to come this format. I want to come, for example, Kingston space Bertha, Linda space Gomez. So let's do that. I click the column and I go split column by delimiter. And it's not a comma, it's a custom delimiter. And the delimiter is a comma and a space. That's what's separating the two words that I want to separate. I can leave each occurrence of the delimiter, okay? And now you see it gives me two columns. It gives me one column with, and it for some reason, it already put it in the correct order. Okay, let's zoom. So this is the first name, and this is, no, in fact, is it correct? Gomez. Let's go back. It already changed the type to text. So yeah, this one in fact is the other way around. Maybe I messed up here. So, but this is supposed to be the last name and then the first name, last name, first name. Okay. So Gomez is the last name. So this column is last name. I could change it, but I'm not going to do that, because what I need is, in fact, I want to merge these two columns. So now I want to merge them, but I want this one and that one. Okay. So I want this one, select this one first and then this one, and I want to merge the columns. Here's another important information that I want you to see. If you look up here, we have a transform tab and an add column tab. There are some common buttons in both. Not everything is the same, but there are common buttons in both tabs. For example, let me zoom. In transform here, we have the extract button that we are going to use in this case. And if I go and click add column, in the add column, we also have the button extract. So which ones, I'm sorry, it's not extract, I'm my mistake. We are going to use merge, sorry about that. It's the merge column. I was thinking another example more towards the end. it's the merge column that we are going to use. We have the merge columns button here, and we also have it there. So which one to use? So it's here. Which one to use? It depends on what you want. If you want to keep the columns that you have now and add an extra column, then you should use the Add Column tab, and you should use the Merge Columns button in that tab. In this case, we don't want that. We want to transform these two columns into just one. We don't want to keep that one, okay? So we go select the columns, tab, transform, and then merge columns. And the separator will be a space, and the name of the new column will be full name. Okay. Okay, and we have Linda Gomez, Anna Cash, John Timothy, Judy Williams. That one is a little bit reversed. Let's pretend that's the name of the person. Okay, we have what we need. The other columns disappeared. We don't need those. We have our data ready. Let's go to Home. Let's go to Close and Load to. And I want to put it on the existing worksheet on a table here. It's fine. Click OK. The data is loading. We will get our data here. And I'm going to use this example to answer that question if I understood the question correctly. Okay, let me save the file. Before answering to that question, let's test the file. Let's test the query. Okay, let's bring the other, just a second, sorry. Let's bring our file explorer here. Okay. So this is a folder where the file is. Let's pretend that the next month or another period, I have different data. And now I have a few options. We will see more options in the next examples. This option here gives me, it lets me explain what you needed. So let's say I have this second file, payroll 2, and now I want the information from that file. If I don't want to change my query, I need that file to be called payroll 2. So if I change the first one to payroll 3, let's say, and then come here and put it payroll, now this becomes my next file, my data source file. So if I come here, right click and go refresh, it will look at that file and brings me information, has more names and different information there. But what if I want to do this dynamic? I mean, what if I want to do this dynamic? There's a couple of different techniques. On my YouTube channel, there's one video explaining one option. That technique there, in fact, has a little bit of a problem because at some point we get Power Query to show us some data privacy settings that we need to change. So it's not so nice. There's another option that I'm going to show you. Let me just, and I was going to show this example only at the end, but since the question has popped up, and we don't have a lot of time actually left. I had a lot more to show you, but we are running out of time. Let me just go here and find a piece of code that I want. You see, it was the last example here that I wanted to show you this option too, because it's one of the most asked questions. How do I make my path dynamic? This is one option, and it requires to use the M code. So that's why I was going to show you only at the end. So what do I need to do? Let's pretend that to make this just easier for this example, let's pretend that these two files with data, one is for January. I'm changing the name of the source already. So if we try to run the query, it will give us an error. And one is February. If I try to run the query, it will give me an error because I'm going to do that. If I do right click and do refresh, or data tab and button refresh, see, there's an error. It says, I cannot find what you are telling me to find. I cannot find the file payroll. It's not there anymore. Okay, so how can we solve this? This is one option. I'm going to create a named range here. I'm going to put here data validation first. So data and then data validation. And I'm going to create a list here. And I'm going to put January, February. These are my two options on my list. And I could put the entire list of months, whatever is your requirement, okay? And this cell, January, which is the other file, this cell, I'm going to give it a name. So here at the top, on this the name ranges field, I'm going to type selected file. Cannot have spaces. Okay, I'm going to zoom so everybody can see. So here I created a name for this range that is composed of one cell only. Okay. Now what we can do is we can come to our query, double click to edit, and we need to do a little bit of M code here. So like I said at the beginning, Power Query we can do a lot without any code, but if we are able to do some coding, we can build better solutions. Let's just wait a little bit more. And here we go to view and so we go to view and then we go to the advanced editor button here, okay? View advanced editor. And this shows me a window with all the steps that were recorded automatically by Power Query. We didn't have to do any of these code, okay? The first code is the source, and as you see, it put here the path of the file that I used when I created my query. This folder and that file, and the file name was payroll. Let's imagine that in this case, what I need to change is just the name of the file. So the name of the file will be not payroll, but it will be Jan for January, Feb for February, and
Hi,
so on.
Celia. This is
Yeah.
Faraz here. Could you please zoom the screen so the audience can see that?
Okay. Thank you, Faraz. Hi. Glad
Hi.
you're here.
Yeah,
Okay. So
thank you.
thank you for reminding me. Okay, so this is our code. And as I was saying, the first step is source. And we have our file path recorded here, hard copy. So it's fixed. It's not dynamic. And I want to change this part here. Payroll, that's the part that is going to change. And this is what we are going to modify. Okay. So what we are going to do, I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to create a new step here, and I'm going to call selected file. Can give it any name. This is the name of the step, equals to, and then I am copying this piece of code that I already brought from my my text file. I had it recorded here. Okay, I'm going to zoom again. Okay. You can find this information, and let me just, sorry, do it again. Okay, so what do we have here? We have excel.current workbook, then brackets, and then named range. This is what I need to change. And content column 1, 0. Translating. I'm going to say, okay, look at this current Excel book and go and look for the named range, a name, and the name of the range, I'm going to type it here. It's not named range. The name of the range we chose was selected file. And then look at the content of that range, and then look at the column 1 of that range, and in column 1 look at the first cell of that column. In fact, it may seem a little bit weird, but because we only have one cell, but that's how we need to do. Okay, so here the named range in my case, it's called selected file. Okay, so this should work. Another thing that we need to do is at the end we need to put a comma. So in the M code, all the steps have a comma at the end, except the last one. The last one doesn't have a comma.
Hello, madam. Please change, repeat again a step, please.
Sorry? I'm not sure if that was a question or a request for me.
Madam, kindly repeat the step again, please.
Do you want me to repeat this step?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, so, but you'll have the recording of the session and you will be able to go back and watch the times you need. So our query was starting here. Was starting here. We went up and we created a new step. This step can be called whatever you want. I just called it the same name as the range name, but it could be something else. So we give it the name here, and we go and we paste this code here. This is M code, like we could have VBA code. This is M code. So the piece of code that will work for this circumstance, and it is excel.current workbook brackets, and then we need to put this string as is, and the only thing you need to worry about is the name of the range that I created in that yellow cell. I named that cell selected file. That's the name that I created. So that's the thing that you need to put in here. You will see this working just after this. Okay, maybe it will make sense after, and then you can tell me again if it helped or not. Okay, so that yellow cell that we had here, I named it selected file, and that's the name of the range that I put here. Okay, now what I need to say is, okay, my source is not going to be always all this path. Okay, let's zoom in. My source is going to be this path, but this portion here is not going to be payroll. The name of the file will be defined by this step here that it's called selected file. Okay, I know it's a bit advanced for those who just started looking at Power Query. That's why I was going to show this more towards the end, but it's an important question. So I'm going to select payroll. I'm going to put comma, comma. This is to create the separation. Oh, okay, sorry. In fact, I want to do this. I'm going to delete payroll. I'm going to put comma, comma. I'm going to put and I'm going to put the name of that step, which was selected file, here. Okay. We can put spaces. I think it's not a problem. I'm going to zoom in and let's see if this makes sense. Okay. So now I'm saying, you know what, my source, sorry about that, my source, Control Shift, my source will be the path, which is the path to my folder, and here with comma, sorry, not comma, quotes, double quotes, and then %, and then the next portion will be whatever is generated here, the selected file step. So this is the selected file step, %, and then the rest of the path that we need, which is .xlsx, which is the extension of the file. So double quotes, okay? Let's review this. I'm going to go to do done. Hope this will work. It's not giving me any errors. Let's see what this does. If I click here on first step, let's see. You see, I selected file, my first step. The result of that, the result of that is Jan. Why? Because this is the content of the named range selected file. The named range selected file will this range here painted in yellow. Content of that range, the first column, the first cell, only one cell, so it's that cell. That this gives me. So now the source, what will the source be? Okay, so now the source will be the folder that's composed of all those 3 portions. I hope this is not too complicated, okay? Especially those who just started looking at Power Query today. You don't need to worry if you don't understand this now. Don't worry. You don't need to know everything about Power Query first day. Just do what you can with the tools that you understand, and day by day you will be better. You will become better. Okay? You see, so this is my path to the file. Okay, let's test this. Let's go close and load. Remember, this is the January file. Let's do February. Let's come here. I created a data validation. I have an option to do February, right? Let's choose February. And now let's refresh. So data, and then hit the button refresh that I cannot see now. Oh, it's there, refresh. Or you can go right click on your table and hit refresh. You see how the data refreshed to portion of the file that we had initially, the other file. So this is one way of making it dynamic. It will all depend on your circumstances. You may need to create a cell. For example, a common challenge that happens is, excuse me, if you are working on a Dropbox shared folder, the path for me is not the same for the other person. So you need to create a cell where the path of the file when you open the file will be displayed. Again, on my YouTube channel, there's one video there that explains how you can create that path that makes the file open and put the file path there. And based on that information, you will be able to track your folder and then use that range to point Power Query to the correct file, to the correct data source. I'm not sure if this answered the question of that person before. Let's hope this helps. This is an advanced technique. Sorry?
We can take some questions from the participants.
Yeah, we can take questions. I had other examples to show you, but we have come to the end of our time, so I don't want to take more of your time. Everybody has a Sunday to enjoy, so let me know if there are any questions.
Shayan, please unmute yourself and ask the question.
If people are interested in staying 15 more minutes, I am available for that, and I can show you one or two more things, or we can take questions, whatever you think it's best. Let us know in the comments what you prefer. I don't want the session to be too extensive for us, for you.
Hi, Celia. Faraz.
Sorry.
This is Faraz here. Thank you very much.
Hello.
And
Thank
this
you,
was a
Faraz.
session and got to learn a lot about how to make a dynamic name range. With that you're picking up the data. That's really cool. Okay, there are questions from the team. There's the members over here, Masood. He's asking what is the main difference between a pivot table and Power Query? How can you differentiate both of them?
Pivot table and Power Query?
Yep.
Okay, so Power Query is the tool that we have available here on the Data tab. Okay, we have these options here. I didn't show you, but we have gathered data from a file, from a CSV file and from a workbook, but we could go and get data from all these different databases. We could get data from a folder, for example, from file, from folder. I could point the query to an entire folder and gather the information of all the files in that folder. And then we have when we start getting our data. Let's edit this one, and the Power Query editor opens. We have all these options here. We just used 2 or 3 buttons, and there's so many options. I can keep columns, remove columns, rows, remove rows. I can merge queries, which is combine different queries into just one. I can replace values. Let's say there's certain values in my data that I don't want them to be like that. I want them to be replaced by something else. I can transform my columns or add columns. I could add conditional columns, for example. Conditional columns is something that we can say, okay, this is my data. I want a new column where if an information in column A or the first column is a certain number, then give me yes. If it is a different number higher than a certain value, give me no, for example. I can create, it's another world inside Excel. So Excel is one world, and inside that world, that's another world called Power Query. So Power Query is a tool inside Excel that allows you to go to data sources and bring your information from that data source, transform the data in there to clean the data and make it the way you need it to be. That's Power Query. A pivot table, it's another tool, different tool in Excel. And what it does, it's a reporting tool. If you are not familiar with pivot tables, I strongly recommend you to also search about that. There's a lot of courses online, a lot of videos online. Just go to YouTube, type in pivot tables, or go to Udemy, find some courses in there. Talk to the people you know in your circle about in Excel, that you know that Excel, to recommend some courses, because it's another very valuable tool. So this is the table here. This table is the result of a query in Power Query, and now I can click this table and go to Insert and Pivot Table, and it gives me, okay, pivot table, what's the range? That's the range, is that table. It has a name. The name is in here. It was a name automatically created by Excel. I say okay. not a very interesting source to create a pivot table. But let's say I want to the check date in rows. It's just one date, so that's, like I said, it's not a very interesting example to show power of pivot tables. And then if I go the employer liability into values, it gives me the sum automatically. So I created this on a separate sheet. I forgot that. So let's see. Instead of using a formula in Excel to sum these values, the employer liability that we can see here at the bottom. Here at the bottom, the sum is 488.13. The pivot table calculates that for you. If I put, okay, I want, there's another option. Now we could stay here forever talking about pivot tables. So I can go to pivot table, design, and report layout, and show in tabular form. Okay, so now I have check date. I only have one date, and then I have my employers, the sum of the employer liability, which is 488.13. So this is another tool. You could call it a reporting tool. If you have a long list of data, let's say many different dates, what you are paying to each person on each date, you will be able to get your totals on a pivot table immediately without having to be using sum ifs or any other formulas. It's just another tool in Excel. I hope this answered the question.
Ryan, can you please unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Celia.
Yes.
Hi, Rahim. Thank you for organizing this session. So I'm quickly asking my question regarding the Power Query. I am using Power Query since last 1 year, and the problem I'm facing is that I want to change the source from file to folder. Right? I am successfully changing it, but after changing the source, it is not recognizing the other query steps. Like it is showing the
Okay. Yeah, because when you point your query to a folder, there's a few steps that you need to take. You first need to say, okay, in this folder, what are the files that I want? Do I want all the files? Do I want just some files? There's a series of helper queries that are created related to the folder. It will create a helper query saying, indicating, it's called sample file. So it will, you need to explain Power Query what you want it to do with each file in that folder. So the steps are a little bit different. Was it a big query, a lot of steps that you had, and you wanted to repeat? Is that the problem?
yeah.
Yeah.
It is a big query.
Yeah. There's one thing. Let me see if I can replicate this.
Actually, I'm adding all
If
the steps that are required to process the folder, and it is successfully running it. But after running those steps, when I am jumping to the query steps, it is giving error as the specific column is not identified like this. So it
yeah,
is
so
not
you
identifying it.
need to go and find the step where you are getting the error, and see what was created in the M code in that step. And it probably is referring to a column that you had before when you first created the query. And now, after implementing the folder steps, that column may not be there, or maybe with a different name. So you need to look, start from the source step, the first step, and click down, down, down until you find the step that it's giving you the error, and then try to see which column, what is causing the error. That's the only thing I can tell you now without looking at the problem, specific problem. find the step that is causing the error, look at the alerts that you receive, and go back and compare if that's the column that it's pointing, maybe a column there it does not have the proper name, and then Power Query cannot find what you are telling it to find. Okay.
Yes, Celia, as you rightly said, that it's pointing it towards the folder. Then the specific the source has to be changed to the from file to folder. So there are some steps, as said by Celia, which has to go through that step, and then only it can work out. So
yeah.
I can.
Another thing that if you get comfortable with editing on the advanced editor, like I showed there, you can let's see if this works. Come here to the query. Let's say this was the query that was pointing to the file, and I can come here and go copy, right copy. Then I can go to add and right click paste. You see, it put all the M code of that query here. So this is the M code that generates my result when I was pointing to one file. Once you get more comfortable with the M code, this is one option. You can come here, copy these names, and paste these on the advanced editor where you have your M code after you created the steps to point to the folder. But again, it will probably give you some errors. So for example, the source, if I was going to paste this in there, now it won't accept the source because it already has a source step there pointing to the folder. So you will need to change the name here. You will have to put source2, for example, and review some of the things here because it doesn't work directly changing one from file to folder. You need to have a little bit more work than that. Okay. One of the other examples that I had were exactly to work with folders. If you are interested, I am available to come other day and just show one example or two with folders. And there's a lot of things that we can do with folders as well. We can point Power Query to go to a folder and bring all the information in all the files there, or we can put it to bring just go to the folder, but don't bring everything, just bring the most recent file. So there's a lot of different things that we can do depending on the problem that we need to solve. Okay.
Great, thank you, Celia. Yeah, and
Thank
we have
you.
one last question, and then so Rahim can take over on that. Question is that is it possible to keep an auto refresh on the query?
There's yes. So here clicking on the query, go to data, query on the query table, go to data, and then here, I'm not sure if this is here, not in here, not these properties. So we have this properties button. That's not what we want. We want the properties in here. Okay, let me zoom. Not here, here. Okay, so if we right click on the query, we have properties here. Let's select that. And in here you have a few options. One of this would be subject for other talks. For example, enable background refresh is another important thing that we can learn about. No time today, but you can, as you see, you can put here check mark and put refresh every, and then decide how many minutes you want the query to refresh. You can put a check mark here. So you can mark here, refresh every certain minute, or you can put a check mark here, or no, you can put both if you want. Refresh the data when you open the file. So let's say you want to run a report every day you have a new data source. If you put a check mark here, when you open the file, it already refreshes the queries for you if you have everything ready to be refreshed that way. So these are two options that you can use.
All right, so
I hope
thank
this
you so
answered
much.
to the question.
Yeah.
You're welcome. My
And,
pleasure.
and thank you
So
all the participants who
no,
joined.
sorry.
I would like to thank all the participants who have joined today, and Celia, especially to you, to dedicating your time and knowledge for the for especially for the Pakistani community, Excel community. Uh, Definitely, it's a
My
fruitful
absolute
session
pleasure.
for all of us. I'm looking forward to having more sessions. Please mute yourself if you are recognizing personally. All right, so these are, I guess, links. Yeah, we can see that. So participants can contact Celia on these LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook as well.
Yes, I will be sending the file back to you guys. So feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. This is where I connect most of the time with people. Facebook as well, but LinkedIn is my preferred. You have my website. You'll have the YouTube channel. Unfortunately, it has been quite how do you say, not in action. I haven't done videos for a long time. I have plans for that, but no time for everything. I've been quite busy with the meetup group, organizing sessions for people to learn. So, but for, like I said, the video there about dynamic paths has another different technique, and you can also look at that. Look at the comments on the video, because there's other information there. There's another example where you can do the dynamic paths for the queries.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure. Like I said, I can provide another session if the feedback is positive, and if people want to go and see a little bit more, like pointing the Power Query to folders instead of just files. Yeah, it's a big world, and we cannot do it in one session only. I thought I could, but I couldn't. I have other examples, but
Exactly.
no time.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you too.